Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Chantel Crisp. We're both with Royal LePage Signature. This is my colleague, Alexis Victor. And we're going to do something a little different right now that I don't think's ever been done before. We're going to do a combination of videos together, city, country. So I work in Toronto. I'm a real estate broker in Toronto. I've been selling in Toronto for about 12 years now, since 2013. It's 2025 now.
Yeah.
And Alexis has been my go-to person for the country. She is the best person you can speak to if you want to buy a property north of Toronto within 2 hours or even a little further, but you cover Lake Simcoe and Muskoka.
Yes.
So cottage, waterfront, rural property, she is my go-to person. And I want to make sure that I am taking care of my clients, making sure they're in the right hands, because I'm getting so many questions lately about what they should do with their equity. Should they buy a cottage? Should they stay in Toronto? Should they move out of the city? Should they downsize to a condo on the water? And where do they even start? So they've got a great agent in the city, but they don't have somebody out of the city and they don't even know where to start. So they just kind of pause and they freeze and they need direction. And I want to make sure that my clients are getting introduced to you because
Definitely.
you're going to be a huge resource for them to be able to explore these options.
Absolutely. So I find that right now we're seeing a combination of buyers coming to the country. We have clients who are looking to buy a family cottage. We're looking for clients who are looking for an investment property, so a waterfront cottage that you can Airbnb, as well as downsizers. So there's a lot of different products on the market. There's waterfront cottages, there's condos, there's things like Sunshine Harbor, pre-construction projects. So it's really just a matter of navigating what your needs are and where you want to go. And that's very much so determined by the lake, the proximity to the city, and how long you want your commute to be. So there's a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah, I really want to break this down because there are so many questions, starting with, is it even the right time to buy a cottage right now? They have so many questions about interest rates, the market, what's happening to prices. Now there's a lot of questions on the political landscape of what's going to happen. So is it a good time to buy a cottage or a waterfront property right now? And what does it look like in that market right now? Like, is it like for 2025, is this the year to do it?
So that's a great question, Chantel. And I'm really excited to answer that because I always tell buyers January, February is the best time to buy. I'm not kidding. It is the time when we have not tons of inventory, but we have people who with property on the market that are, motivated to sell, and we don't have all the buyers there yet because everybody's waiting until the spring market to hit.
So does that mean that buyers looking right now can scoop up some good opportunities before they hit the spring market, or are they sort of preparing for the spring market right now?
So right now we have leftover inventory from last year.
So it's a little bit of both then.
Yes.
Okay.
So we will see an influx of inventory come on the market in the spring, but with the increase in buyers looking, that will increase the demand. So right now, when you have properties on the market in January and February, you have motivated sellers, and therefore you are more likely to get a better deal. So I personally bought a cottage in January that I then use as a family cottage and as an Airbnb rental. And it's fantastic. And, we didn't know what we were buying at the time, but it turned into the most amazing property ever. So sometimes you have to take a bit of a leap of faith in terms of knowing exactly what it looks like in the summer if it's covered in snow. But I think based on, the location and photos and doing lots of research, you can make those decisions very easily.
And what do you think is happening with the prices right now in cottage country?
So the prices have come way down. We saw an influx of people moving out of the city during COVID. That was already happening pre-COVID. And what we're started seeing now is the return to that again. So everyone sort of paused, like deer in the headlights, froze with all the changes that were happening, the increase in interest rates. And now that the interest rates have come down, and people have had some time to recover from those COVID days, we are looking at some really great properties for, incredible prices. Like, you can actually get a waterfront property for under 500,000 right now.
Wow.
Yes. That was unheard of 2 years ago.
Because it peaked.
It peaked. Yeah. And so we've seen gradually over the last 2 years, the prices come down.
So a lot of those buyers right now who are mostly downsizers, like you're seeing a lot of downsizers move up there,
Tons of downsizers.
and they want to sell their property in the city and just move up there full time.
Yes.
Maybe not even a cottage, but a lot of condos on the water as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of different products. So we've got, whether you're looking for a loft in Aurelia or you're looking for, something that you can rent out, we've got the free development properties, the Deerhurst. We've got the Muskoka Bay Resort, Horseshoe Valley, and there's a new one going up in Collingwood as well. And that allows you to actually own a condo. Muskoka Bay Resort is one of the best golf courses in all of Canada. So you can own a property there and then have it in the rental pool. And the beautiful thing about it is that rental pool is busy. So you're renting your condo all the time and it's completely hands off. So they take care of the booking, they take care of the cleaning, the maintenance, everything.
The resort itself.
The resort itself.
So they are specifically purpose built to be able to easily rent them out.
Exactly. Just like Luna Bay as well.
Wow.
Which is
I
on
like
Sparrow Lake. Yeah, it makes cottage ownership more accessible because you can offset those costs with the rental income. It's the same with somebody who's looking for a cottage. So say, for example, you want a family cottage, but it might be a bit of a stretch for you. Well, if you're looking in an area that has, a strong Airbnb rental demand, then you can rent it out whenever you're not there, not only in the summer, but in the winter season as well.
So what are the rules like in some of these townships for Airbnb? Do they still allow it?
They completely vary. There's no one rule across any one township. So in Ramera, where I live, for example, off of Lake Simcoe, you not only have your fee, which has just gone up. I think we're roughly around 3,000 now, but we also have a bylaw that dictates proximity from one Airbnb to the next. So you have to be 300 feet from another Airbnb property.
Wow.
So I've come across some people.
300 feet is quite far. So if your neighbor is Airbnb-ing, then you can't really Airbnb.
You can't.
And how do you know that when you buy a property, though?
Well, you need to work with an agent who does know.
I mean, or the number. Wow. And then stuff it changes too. The township can change.
Muskoka Lakes right now is changing. And the interesting part about it is that Muskoka is not just one big board. So Port Carling has their own bylaws. Bracebridge has their own bylaws. Gravenhurst has their own bylaws. So it's not just one big blanket across all the Muskoka Lakes cities, right? And so you need to really understand what they're doing and the process in order to get your Airbnb or short-term rental license. I always say if you are looking at a rental property, you're more likely going to want to lean towards the Kawarthas or Muskoka because Ramera is, there's a lot of red tape around renting in Ramera.
And so people know, where's Ramera?
So Ramera is on the east side of Lake Simcoe. It runs from Beaverton all the way through to Washego.
And where's Washego, so people know?
So I live in Washego, and Washego
You're a huge advocate of Washego. You love Washego.
I do. I love Washego. Yeah. It's a small.
I never even heard of Washego until I met you.
Well, everyone gets it confused with Wasaga.
Oh yeah, it's not Wasaga.
Right? It's not Wasaga.
Totally
It's
two
not
different lakes.
Wasaga.
Yeah.
So Washego is located at the end of Lake Couchiching. So Lake Simcoe feeds into Lake Couchiching, and then Washego's at the very end.
And Lake Couchiching also goes into Aurelia, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So Aurelia is sandwiched between Lake Simcoe and Lake Couchiching. So we have the Narrows, which is the bridge that crosses between the two lakes in Aurelia.
Narrows is like a
It's a bridge
It's a
that
bridge.
basically takes you across
Okay.
the channel that bridges the two lakes together. And we have some incredible properties there, like Mariners Pier, which is a condo development right at the Narrows. And you not only get a beautiful, modern looking condo, but you also have a boat slip and a community center that's right on the water.
And so everybody knows, what's a boat slip?
So a boat slip is where you park your boat.
Okay.
Yeah. So like a parking spot, but
With a boat.
yeah.
Okay. And this is why when people are like, can you sell me a cottage? I'm like, no. You don't want me to sell you a cottage. You want me to sell your property in the city. You want Alexis to find you the best cottage and sell you the cottage because you literally know everything. So let's dig into something that you said there about the Airbnb stuff. Can we rewind a little bit?
Of course.
So, because I'm huge on investing in real estate and rental properties and short-term rentals. We did for a long time. And actually, we're still doing it in one of our properties. But we want to make sure if we're buying a property in like on the waterfront or a cottage, how can I hedge my bet, basically? How can I mitigate my risk in that investment property if I want to rent it out and knowing that the township's not going to suddenly switch something up on me? How can I maximize that investment? Is it better for me to have it as a secondary property that I also visit? Does that make a difference in how long I can rent something out for? Or does it, can I just have this secondary property that I never go to? Like, do I need to claim it as my residence in a way? Because I know there's some rules around that in terms of having a secondary property as a cottage kind of falls into a bit of a primary residence thing. Like, tell us about that.
So I have had clients use their cottage as a primary residence.
Okay.
And of course, you're looking at, capital gains tax when you sell, right? So that's a factor. And I would say right now, like if you're going to buy something and you're looking to flip it, that's not going to work out. Like that's a flip right now is not a good idea.
It's too high risk.
It's too high risk right now. If you want to buy something that you want to hold on to for, 3 to 6 years, then you're going to do okay. You're going to do well. But if you're looking to do a quick turnaround, just due to, the cost of buying and selling, that's probably not best case scenario.
Yes.
So I would say you want to be looking at something that you can hold on to, and you want to look at something that's in an area where there's demand for short-term rentals. So for example, in Ramera, although it's not a fantastic place to do short-term rentals, there is a huge opportunity if you're near Casino Rama, for example, because there's
Casino Rama is in Ramera.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so Rama is the First Nations territory in Ramera.
Okay.
And so Casino Rama is there, and we've got Lake Couchiching and Lake St. John that are in the Ramera area off of Lake Couchiching and close to Casino Rama. So we know that there's a lot of people constantly coming and year round to go to the concerts and the venue at Casino Rama.
And so people will want to rent something overnight or stay something in a place overnight rather than a hotel. Are there a lot of hotels around there?
There are not a lot of hotels.
There's not a lot of hotels.
We have
and there's demand to stay there.
There is, yeah, because they're starting to up their game in terms of entertainment. They're having, bigger celebrities come in to perform. And so, as we see Casino Rama investing in these live performances, we're starting to see more people come to the area. We also had the early airport sell, and one of the developers has just purchased land on the east shore of Lake Couchiching. So we're going to see a lot of development happening there as well, which is really exciting because it's such a beautiful area and there will be lots of restaurant options for people, and it will bring a lot more people to the area as well.
So what's that township at the east end of Lake Couchiching?
So you're looking at Rama Road, and that's within Ramera. So that's just outside of Aurelia.
Just outside of Aurelia. Okay. So can we talk about Aurelia a little bit?
Yes, we can.
Because there's so much buzz around Aurelia right now that I didn't even know existed, and I feel like you're so knowledgeable on that area and what's coming. A lot of people are asking me, when they're talking about trying to purchase a cottage property, a waterfront property, where should we buy? What lake should we buy on? What area is up and coming? So tell us more about that.
So it really is a really up and coming area. I always say it's the new Barrie. It's off of Highway 11. So the Highway 11 corridor runs directly from the city. So it's an easy commute. It's a direct highway commute. And Aurelia is about 25 to 30 minutes north of Barrie. So in terms of proximity, you're looking at an hour and a half to the GTA. And the nice thing about Aurelia, it is really close. And so when you're considering moving outside of the city, a lot of people want that kind of easy commute, right? The proximity. But we also have two lakes. We've got Lake Cottage and we've got Lake Simcoe. So you can be on either side of Aurelia and you have two different lakes that you can choose from. We also have things like a Home Sense. We've got a Costco. We've got a Winners and a
So there's
Walmart.
big
So
box
we've
stores
got
too.
big box stores, but we also have one of the most beautiful downtowns that I have ever
Like
seen.
historic
It's
downtown.
gorgeous. You can see the water like throughout the entire town because the town sits up high and the water is down below.
Yes.
And so it's really beautiful. We have the Port of Aurelia, which is fantastic. People come from all over to come and park their boats so that they can come and walk down our downtown Aurelia. We block off the street once a month every weekend in the summertime. So it turns into a walkable street. You can walk right up from the water. There's all kinds of facilities. So we've got showers and washrooms down at the waterfront. But then that's where we're also, the newest development is going up, Sunshine Harbor by Fram and Slocker.
And where is Sunshine Harbor?
That's right at the Lake Cottage waterfront in Aurelia. So you can buy in for as low as $800,000, and it's a 3-story
And that's like
townhouse.
Is it considered luxury resort?
That's not a resort. That's a condo development.
It's a condo development
on the waterfront. Yeah,
and that's waterfront condos that are like low rise.
they're 3-story.
3-story.
Yeah. So and there's townhomes and then condos as well. So it's a great place. It's a great place. We've got great schools. We've got, extracurricular activities. We've got recreation centers. The water's beautiful.
Okay, so you touched on something there, schools.
Yeah.
So I find with most of my clients that are thinking about buying a cottage property or waterfront property, they're going to be either downsizers or they're going to be looking for a secondary property. And so the downsizers aren't so concerned about schools, but they are very curious about condos on the waterfront, because sometimes at that stage of your life, you don't want a lot of maintenance. You don't want a ton of acreage to deal with. You don't want, to maintain the dock yourself. Like, I don't know, what else is there? There's so many things
Absolutely.
on a waterfront property to do. So a cottage that is just a condo on the water. I mean, that just sounds, even for me, that sounds amazing. But on the other side, there's like this third sort of like group that's thinking about just selling their house in the city and moving up to the country.
I did it.
Forget it. You did it. I almost did it. I was this close. Didn't do it. This close. So another big question that we have often is when we talk about Aurelia, there's this notion that maybe it's still a little bit dodgy. Is that true?
Well, I think that's true in any growing city. Yes, there are some, dodgier areas of Aurelia, but we're going through an evolution right now. Like we're in full force gentrification mode. And I think that's where the opportunity is. If you're looking to move out of the city and you're looking for affordability and you want your child to go to school, so say, you're a young family in your 40s and you're finding the city to be unattainable, or you're struggling to keep your $1 million, $1.5, $2 million house, well, you're going to be able to sell that and buy for half the price. Yeah. And so all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where you don't have a mortgage, right? So that takes a lot of pressure off. And that is one of the really nice things about living in the country. You can still commute to the city, but that overhead that you have living in the city completely just gets released.
Yes.
which
know, it's
was
so tempting.
which is really nice. And, if you don't have things in the city that, you have to be there for, or there's nothing, holding you to it, then why not consider a move out of the city? Why not? It's a slower pace of life. It's, commuting is a lot easier to get around. You're in small, friendly towns with great people. The one thing I will say that I have noticed and that some people do struggle with is resources. So if you're in the city and you're used to going out to a restaurant every night, living in the country probably isn't going to be the right fit. Like going out to a restaurant, I mean, I might do that once a month.
Yeah.
It's not really a priority for me though.
And
So
but it's also
like
like
something
lifestyle too, right? I
for
mean,
sure.
before I had kids, I went out for dinner like multiple times a week, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
now it's like it's not worth the hassle.
Yeah.
It is more of a novelty. So I think, in my stage of my life, then yeah, like that wouldn't bother me now. But do they have Uber Eats? Because that would be a lot more convenient for somebody in my life stage, right? So
For sure.
I think for downsizers, they don't necessarily want to go out for dinner every night anyway, but they are going to ask about hospitals. So, like, are there hospitals close by?
We have one of the best. Soldiers Memorial is actually a
In
teaching
Aurelia, right?
in Aurelia, yeah. So we've also got the Bracebridge Hospital, which is my go-to because it's quieter than the Aurelia Hospital. But Aurelia is a fantastic hospital. I have been there several times for various reasons, and they're quick. They are efficient. It's a teaching hospital, so there's a lot of extra, eyes and bodies
Oh, that's good
there.
to know.
Yeah. So, and we have a lot of funding that goes into our hospitals,
Okay.
and we're constantly looking for doctors.
So
That's huge
Is
for
that
us.
the closest hospital as well if you're buying something in Muskoka?
So, no, in Muskoka, you'd either be looking at going to Huntsville or Bracebridge.
And there's two other hospitals there.
Yes.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah.
And if you're buying basically anywhere around Lake Simcoe, it's pretty quick to get to Aurelia.
Well, if you're on the Georgina side of Lake Simcoe, because you've got the Barrie Hospital too. So
Oh, that's
Lake
right.
Simcoe is,
So you've got one at the bottom of the lake and you've got a hospital at the top of the lake.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then you've got, depending on where you are, on the Beaverton side, you might be going to the Lindsay Hospital, Ross Memorial, which is also a great hospital. I grew up with in Lindsay, so I know a lot of the doctors and the nurses there as well. They put a lot of funding into that hospital, so it's definitely a go-to. And then if you're going further east, you've got Peterborough. So yeah, there's lots of resources in terms of healthcare. We also have smaller private clinics. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more intimate, you can do that. And we also have registered nurses. So there are different facilities around the areas where you can actually have a phone call or a visit with a nurse through one of the pharmacies.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to move up that way, another big question that they're asking is what lake? Like between Georgian Bay, Lake Simcoe, the Muskokas, the Kawarthas, where do you go? Like how do you know which lake is going to be better for you and where like the is it based on kind of what lifestyle you want? Like what are you supposed to consider?
So that is one of the first questions that most cottage buyers ask me. And it's a complex question because it really depends on what you are looking for out of your rural property or your waterfront property. So I would say, having grown up on a livestock auction sale barn in Woodville, it's not such a shock to me to see weedy water, right? Whereas,
I do
somebody
not
else,
want weedy water.
right?
Yeah.
So the Kawarthas are predominantly weedier than, say, Muskoka, for example.
Okay.
So you've got Georgian Bay, which is like the ocean. It's a big, huge lake. It's colder, lots of waves.
Colder.
Right?
Okay.
So then you've got Lake Simcoe, also a bit more of an ocean vibe to it. It's got, the big open space, but it doesn't get as windy as Georgian Bay, for example. It's not as deep. Then you've got the Kawarthas, you've got your, It's farmier. The Kawartha Lakes are a bit more farmy than, say, Muskoka, which has that more traditional cottage vibe to it. So we've got the deeper, darker lakes. So you can't see to the bottom of the lake, but it's clean,
Yeah.
clear water, right?
I don't like not seeing.
Yeah. So you'd be better off.
Some people
on
don't care
Simcoe.
though.
Yeah. Like,
But I am also like more of an ocean feel person. I'm a
Sure.
big fan of Georgian Bay. We lived in Collingwood for a while. My father lives on Georgian Bay. So I naturally have gravitated there, but it is cold, the
Yes,
water.
it
is. You make a good point there.
for sure.
But Lake Simcoe is pretty clear, that water too, right? It's beautiful and
I
it's
am-
warmer.
For sure. And I am a Simcoe girl, I will say. Like, hands down, I love Lake Simcoe. I love it because of the proximity. I love it because of the sandy bottom. I love it because you can see. And so we also had a cottage on Simcoe, and when you look out, it's just blue. The water is blue, the sky is blue, it's wide open, there's no obstructions in your view. Like it's very ocean-like.
So tell me how this all connects though, because Lake Simcoe kind of ties into a bunch of other lakes and then they go into the Muskoka lakes. What are these different lakes and are they different?
They're very different. The water does flow through all of these lakes, right? Like the water just, like, say for example, Lake Simcoe feeds into Lake Couchiching. Lake Couchiching feeds into the Trent Severn. It also feeds into the Black River and the Green River. So then the Severn goes, the Trent Severn waterway goes all the way through Ontario. So
We're gonna keep it like within 2 hours.
but within 2 hours,
If I want like a sandy beach and clear waters, where should I go? If I don't care about the clear waters, but I want more of a rock beach, where should I go? If I don't want seaweed or I don't want zebra mussels, where should I be focusing? Like, what are the pros and cons of each? And you've built a guide for this.
I have built a
You're
guide
next
for
level on this. Like, Alexis has a full guide that she's developed over the years, and it's quite what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's intensive. Like you've really outlined, but yet simplified what lake and what's in there.
Well, that's the tricky part, right? Is like every lake has a different typography. So, for example, Lake Simcoe. So Lake Simcoe primarily has a sandy bottom, but there are areas of Lake Simcoe that are rockier and higher. So if you're going around, the Beaverton side, you're up high, right? And it's rock at the bottom. Whereas if you go further over to Georgina, it's sand. And then you go up a dip and then to Barrie, you start to get sandy again. And then around down towards Aurelia, it's high and then it goes down into a sandy bottom again. So that's the thing with, like, when people ask me, what lake should I buy on or what's the waterfront like? Well, I know areas, but very specific properties, you really need to go and visit them so that you can see how it's been landscaped, right? So if you own a waterfront cottage, you're also responsible for your shore wall, but you're also under the Lake Simcoe conservation jurisdiction.
And so people know, what's a shore wall?
So a shore wall is the wall between the land that you own and the water. So whether you're looking at Lake Simcoe or you're looking at one of the Muskoka lakes, you are responsible for that shore. So if your wall collapses, you need to build it up again. So that can be a great expense. So that's another one thing that you need to consider if you're purchasing a property. So if you're on a low-lying lot where water's coming up, you're going to need to do some sort of boulder along the edge of your waterfront to protect your shore, right? Because it will erode over time. The water will start to erode your land.
So we're going to do a secondary video after this. We're going to do a series of a few videos, and we're going to talk about some of the mistakes that we've made.
Us and clients make
The biggest mistakes that people make when buying a cottage for the first time, and what to kind of look out for. So we're going to tie that in the series of videos with a few different topics. So follow us, subscribe, and
Subscribe and like.
comment and like and do all the things and follow along and let us know if you have questions.